There's been quite a shakeup at WFG over the last few days, and I'm sure there are a lot of people, like myself, wondering if WFG is imploding. There have been lawsuits, counter lawsuits, and a ton of stuff coming out on social media, and a lot of it's really conflicting. But what is confirmed is that some of the biggest leaders in the company and thousands of agents are leaving. What is really going on? Why are thousands of agents leaving the company? Going from working for God to God's favored individuals. When you work for WFG, do you really own your own business like they claim you do? Are you really an entrepreneur, or are you just another employee getting a 1099 instead of a W-2? Well, let's get into it. This is Ian with Freedom Flow Finance and IULRehab.com. And this story really caught my attention because my partner and I were both recruited into WFG. I'm not going to get into it too much in this video because I have another full video coming out soon explaining that interesting experience. It's safe to say that WFG is not what I thought it was going into it. I met a lot of really nice people who were doing things and selling products that I was just not comfortable with, so I got out of there. And it looks like I'm not the only person who wanted out. And according to some of the documentation in these lawsuits, I'm not the only one who is questioning whether or not you really own your company in WFG. Let's start this off with a big picture overview and a kind of a high-level look at what's going on here. Essentially what's happened is that a handful of prominent leaders within the company decided to split off and start their own company, and they're trying to take all of their downlines and the agents under them with them. According to the lawsuit filed by WFG, you can leave the company, but you just can't take your downline or any of your customers with you. And what these leaders are trying to do is considered a breach of contract. Most everything revolves around one big question. Do you own your business? And for me, this was a big sticking point. This is one of the reasons why I didn't stay around, because I didn't feel confident that I was actually starting a business. It seemed like everything I was doing was just building WFG's business. Now, there's nothing wrong with being an employee and helping somebody else build their business for a salary. But what you're told coming into WFG in this business is that you're an entrepreneur and you're building your own business that you can take with you freely if you want to go at any time. That's what I was told anyway. The thing is, everything that I was seeing and observing with my own two eyes was in conflict with that statement. It didn't seem like anybody was building their own business. It really felt like everyone was just working for WFG. Again, no judgment, and there's no worries if you want to work for a company, but it felt like I was being lied to, quite frankly. That's really why I'm here today, to ask that question. If you work with WFG, do you really ever own your business? Apparently, even according to some of the biggest leaders in the company, that answer is no. The majority of the drama here really revolves around one certain individual named Eric Olson.
Hey, what's the next step after becoming a 1%er? You gotta get your $1 million ring. You gotta get your $1 million ring. You know, and for me, someone just told me you should brand yourself or trademark yourself as the millionaire maker. And I really, am humbled by that because we help our clients become millionaires. We help our business partners become millionaires. And we have a special announcement right now that when we wake up, first thing in the morning tomorrow, we've officially created and developed our 20th millionaire in Pinnacle, officially.
He's one of the top producers in the company, making over $1 million a month with over 20,000 agents in his downline. He'd been with the company for 20 years. According to the lawsuits, they tried to work out a deal. Apparently, WFG offered Eric Olson $20 million a year to stay on board, but he refused it. I've already reviewed a lot of the legal documentation, and quite frankly, I don't want to do it again, so I'm not going to go through it here, but I'll link a couple of videos below that go through it in very fine detail, reading it almost word for word, if you'd like more information on the details of the contracts and the lawsuits. But apparently, according to the lawsuit, Eric had been talking with the leadership of WFG for months, trying to break apart so he could start his own business. WFG has somewhere between 60 and 70,000 total agents, so if he left, taking 20,000 with him, that'd be a huge blow to WFG, and understandably so, they didn't want him to leave. In Olson's lawsuit against WFG, he alleges that they did several things to try to get him to stay, including changing the wording in his contract, which, by the wording of the contract that he signed, they have every right to do. Quite frankly, I don't care. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not trying to take one side over another, not with the company. The thing is, there are a lot of people who are in this company who are going through this, like mom and dad splitting up and having to decide which parent to go with kind of a situation. And I just want to put this out there for people to look at so they can see and get an outside perspective on what's going on. As far as I can tell, the litigation started on January 20th, when WFG sued Eric Olson. A few days later, on the 29th, he countersued them, and his wife also countersued them. Sandra Olson's her name. WFG alleges that before Eric left the company, he tried to recruit a bunch of other people to go with him, which, according to his contract, all those people that he's trying to recruit are technically employees of WFG, and there's a non-compete clause, which is pretty standard in a lot of contracts like this. According to WFG, what Eric Olson is doing is a form of corporate raiding. His tactic was to target spouses in the leadership. And apparently, in the WFG contract, you are able to transfer from a husband to a wife or vice versa your agency number. And the agency number or code is what allows you to get paid. So a husband can transfer his code over to his wife, and she can get paid for all the residuals that he gets from his downline. Or the wife can transfer her code to her husband, which means they'll be able to retain that income between the two of them. Allegedly, what Eric was doing was, for example, get the husband to give his code to the wife so she could continue to get the income. The husband would then leave WFG for the new company, GFI, where the husband could start up the new business, bring over agents from their old downline, and eventually bring the wife over with him to the new company with all of the assets that supposedly belong to WFG. According to the allegations, Olson reached out to many leaders throughout the company and tried to do this. And apparently he was successful in some cases. There's a social media post being shared saying that GFI grew by 4,000 agents in just a couple weeks, which means there are a lot of people jumping ship. Although it's very speculative at this point, and I'm sure we'll find out more in the future. The thing is, there are people on Instagram and different social media sites where I've seen who are talking about leaving and have left WFG. WFG is saying that per the terms of the contract, he can leave, but the people under him can't leave. But per the countersuit of Eric Olson against WFG, he's saying that, no, he owns his own business and he should be able to take all the people he recruited with him. Which points back to the main question, and a question I think is really valid. Do you own your own company if you start your company within WFG? And from what I'm seeing, the answer is apparently not. There are several people who are posting about losing their residual income, which means they're not taking their business with them. WFG owns their business. Check out this social media post by Greg Kapp. He's one of the top leaders in the company. He's made multiple millions of dollars over the last couple decades with the company and has built a huge hierarchy himself. He's leaving WFG, and he also states that he's losing all of his residual income.
Hello everybody, my name's Greg Kapp. I'm 72 years old. This is one of the happiest days of my life. 1 hour ago, I just resigned from WFG. I went in WFG, became the MVP of that company, had many other MVPs after that, but I resigned today. I resigned today, and I don't know what, but I've never been this happy before in my life. I shouldn't be this happy today, because I just lost all my residual money. And you know what? I have a peace in my heart like I never had before. Why? Because I've joined up with my best friend, Eric Olson and GFI.
So if people like Greg Kapp and Eric Olson can't take their business with them and they lose their renewals and residual income from all the work they've done over the last decades, then what's the likelihood that anyone is ever really going to own their own business with WFG? If these guys can't do it, man, I really feel like I was lied to coming into the company saying that I could own my own business. I kind of always had that feeling anyway, but this is a major confirmation for me. Again, I met a lot of really nice and incredibly good-hearted people who thought they were doing something good and thought they were building their own business. I hope people in the company see this video and really think about that question. Do I own my own business? If Greg Kapp and Eric Olson don't own their own business, what's the likelihood that I'm going to ever own my own business with WFG? That was always one of the biggest talking points coming into this business, being recruited by WFG. You get to come in as an independent contractor and you can build your own business and come and go as you please. But apparently that's just not true. After looking at this thing from multiple angles, it seems pretty clear to me that, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Is Eric Olson right? Did he have the authority to leave the company and bring all of his people with him in kind of an underhanded way that broke his contract? Or did WFG really try to screw him out of a bunch of residual income? Time will tell. This is an ongoing saga, and we will find out all in good time, I'm sure. WFG is a huge company. There are many different hierarchies within it, and I'm pretty sure it's the biggest MLM-style insurance company there is. So I don't want to make any blanket statements whether WFG is good or bad. I'm sure it really depends on where you're at in the hierarchy you come into. But as for me, I know I just wasn't comfortable with what I was seeing and what was happening around me, and quite frankly, I was straight up lied to on multiple occasions by people in my upline. And the truth of it is, I believe that despite being lied to, that the people who were lying to me believed what they were saying. They were just repeating things that people in their upline told to them. Maybe as this thing progresses, I'll continue to make some videos to track what's going on here. Ultimately, I like to look at the bigger picture. Like, what's at stake here? What's really going on? And that question, do you really own your own business if you're part of WFG? I think is a big one that all the agents with WFG should really consider, especially now. Because there's more and more evidence coming out that, in reality, you don't own your own business. And when it comes to the question of whether or not WFG is imploding, looks like we're just going to have to wait and see. This is a relatively new development, and we honestly don't know how many agents are ultimately going to jump ship and go over to GFI. There is a copy of the GFI agent agreement floating around online, and the reality is, it looks very similar to the WFG agent agreement. Oddly enough, some of the provisions that Eric Olson was complaining about in the WFG agent agreement are also in the GFI agent agreement. We'll just have to see what happens in the upcoming weeks and months. The reality is, I doubt there are a lot of people who are in a financial situation where they can just give up their overrides and residuals. Even if the agents that work for WFG realize that they don't actually own their business, they might not be in a financial situation where they can just up and leave. But that has yet to be seen. I'll put a link in the description below for a video that breaks down the GFI contract. It doesn't have the particulars of the pay scale and the compensation, but it does have some of the other provisions. Remember, because these contracts are subject to change by the company at any time, GFI could potentially come out with something that looks really attractive to bring people over, and later on down the line just reduce the compensation. Now, it's purely speculation on my part that they would do something like that, but it really wouldn't surprise me given the fact that a lot of the companies that sell IULs will sell their product with a high cap rate in the beginning to make it look attractive, and then lower the cap rate over time to become more profitable. Who knows? Maybe this situation will be different. I hope this was helpful and gave you something to think about. Again, there are links in the description below if you want to go to some videos that break down the contracts and the lawsuits and the legalese in a little bit more granular detail. If you're a current or former agent with WFG, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear about your experience with the company. Am I totally wrong? Did I get stuck with a bad upline? Did I get stuck in a bad hierarchy? Or is this something that happens elsewhere? From my experience, there are a lot of people that, especially since leaving the company that I've met, who've had experiences that are similar to mine, and which is really unfortunate. Feel free to give this video a like and share it with anybody you know who might find value or interest in what's going on with WFG at the moment. And subscribe to the channel for more content coming out in the near future. And if you own an IUL or know anybody who does, there's a link in the description to a free webinar that I created called IUL Deconstructed. In that webinar, I go through and break down what an IUL does and how it works in great detail. Anyone who has an IUL or is thinking about buying an IUL will probably get a lot of value from watching that video. I also do free policy audits, so if you have an IUL and are curious if it's structured properly, feel free to set up a call with me. I'm happy to help and look over your policy and make sure that it's in good working condition. But until next time, take care.